Addiction isn't a lack of strength. It's an excess of unresolved pain. And as long as you keep trying to beat addiction as if it were the enemy, you'll keep losing the wrong war. Because addiction isn't against you. It's trying to protect you from something. That changes everything. Most people wake up determined to stop. Stop smoking, stop drinking, stop scrolling, stop binge eating. But almost no one wakes up determined to understand. And that's why relapse happens. Not because you're weak, but because you're fighting the symptom, ignoring the root. Carl Jung said that what doesn't become conscious governs your life, and you call it destiny. Addiction is exactly that, an unconscious pattern operating in the dark. And today, we're going to bring light, not to motivate you, but to reorganize your inner chaos. There's something almost no one explains to you. No one gets addicted to pleasure. We get addicted to anesthesia. Pay attention to this. You don't want the cigarette. You want the break. You don't want the drink. You want mental silence. You don't want your cell phone. You want to escape the emptiness. The problem was never the substance. The problem is what you feel when it's not there. And this is where Jung comes in. For him, addiction is a symbol, a distorted attempt by the psyche to restore balance. The mind is trying to compensate for something that was lost, repressed, or ignored, and that something has a name: shadow. The shadow is not something mystical. It's everything you learned to hide in order to be accepted. Anger you swallowed, sadness you couldn't express, neediness you pretended not to have, fear that you masked with productivity. All of this goes somewhere, and that place is the unconscious. But psychic energy doesn't disappear. It transforms, and when it's not integrated, it becomes compulsion. Notice the ritual of your addiction. It has a time, it has a setting, it has a trigger emotion. Maybe it's at the end of the day, maybe it's after an argument, maybe it's when you feel inadequate. The addiction doesn't appear when you are whole, it appears when you are fragmented. And here's the first strategic shift. You're not trying to stop something, you're trying to fill something. As long as that gap isn't identified, the pattern continues. And now I'm going to confront you with respect. Maybe you're more attached to your addiction than you imagine. Because it has become your emotional anesthetic, it prevents you from feeling the full pain. And feeling the full extent of the pain is frightening. But there's something more dangerous than feeling pain: living numb. When you live numb, you also numb your potential. The same nervous system that feels pleasure is the one that feels purpose. The same heart that suffers is the one that loves. You can't just turn off the bad part. When you numb the pain, you reduce life. Jung spoke about individuation, the process of becoming whole. And no one becomes whole by avoiding their own darkness. We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That phrase is a key. Addiction is a door to your darkness. And every time you just try to close the door, it slams shut harder. So here's what almost no one teaches you. There's a third way besides giving in or resisting. Observe. When the impulse comes today, and it will, don't fight it immediately. Stop, breathe, and ask yourself a single question. What am I trying not to feel right now? This isn't about acting yet. It's about identifying. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's a feeling of failure. Maybe it's accumulated fatigue. The addiction is consistent with your pain. It's a poorly calibrated solution. And when you understand this, guilt begins to lose its power. Guilt paralyzes. Awareness transforms. And here's a practical strategy you can apply in the next 24 hours. When the urge appears, you will create a 2-minute interval. Just 2. No cell phone, no distractions, no internal bargaining. During these 2 minutes, you will take a deep breath. Name the real emotion. Write a sentence beginning with, "Actually, I'm feeling." This simple act begins to break the autopilot. You move out of the unconscious ritual and into the conscious ritual. And conscious ritual is transformation. Maybe you still give in after 2 minutes, but now you gave in consciously. And repeated awareness weakens the pattern, because addiction lives on autopilot. It dies in the presence. Now pay attention to this, because this is profound. Desire comes loaded with energy. It accelerates your body. It creates tension. It creates urgency. This energy is the same energy that can be used for creation. If you learn to sustain the energy without immediately discharging it, something changes within you. You stop being reactive, and you begin to be an author. That is power, and that is exactly what Jung meant when he talked about integrating the shadow. Integrate. It's not about accepting the addiction, it's about accepting the wounded part that lies behind it. When you start treating your compulsion as a message and not as a curse, you change your position. You stop being a victim of the impulse, and you become its interpreter. And here's an uncomfortable truth: perhaps the addiction was, for a long time, the only way you found to survive emotionally. Recognizing this doesn't weaken you, it humanizes you. But survival is not the same as living. And perhaps you are ready for something beyond survival. Perhaps you are ready for integration. And integration requires courage. Courage to feel. Courage to stay. Courage not to run away immediately. It's not about never feeling the urge again. It's about no longer being controlled by it. And that starts with conscious micro-choices. Today, not in a month, not when you are stronger. Today. When the urge comes, you'll remember this phrase: "What in me is asking for care, not anesthesia?" If you do this consistently, something begins to reorganize itself internally. The shadow begins to be seen, and what is seen loses the power to act in the dark. You don't overcome addiction by fighting it. You transcend it by understanding it, and that changes the entire narrative of your life. Now I want you to be honest. What emotion do you try hardest to avoid? Loneliness, failure, rejection, insecurity? Write the word in the comments, not for exposure, but for commitment. Here we don't romanticize weakness. We transform awareness into movement. And maybe today isn't the day the addiction disappears, but it can be the day you stop treating yourself as an enemy. And when you stop fighting against yourself, you start fighting for yourself. That's emotional maturity. That's individuation. That's real inner power. If this video reorganized something within you, leave a comment saying which insight resonated most with you. The videos that are appearing on the screen now, I won't say what they're about, but one of them might be exactly the mirror you've been avoiding for a long time.